Jock, how are you? We're not going to talk politics or tariffs. That's got to make you feel good, right?
I'm down with that, guys, without a doubt. Too much tariff talk, too much election talk. Let's talk some football. I like that.
So when I saw the press release last week, I figured that Jay McNeil, president of the Stamps, was channeling his inner Jackie Moon. Because remember in the Will Ferrell movie Semi-Pro, when Jackie dreamed up the Flint Mega Bowl? It was the Mega Bowl, and there was going to be a trophy, and it was going to be this event. And then we find out that the Stamps are launching the inaugural Stampede Bowl July 3rd against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. When you first heard about this, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, you know what, guys? My initial thoughts were this is not going to work because the Calgary Stampeders and the Calgary Stampede have never really had synergy before. As a matter of fact, the Calgary Stampeders have tried to avoid the greatest outdoor show on earth because the parking lot at McMahon Stadium becomes an RV lot, and a lot of visitors come in and use McMahon Stadium. But this is a little bit different. This is the Thursday before the big parade on the Friday, so July the 3rd, and it's sort of going to be the kickoff event for the Calgary Stampede, so I don't think the RV parking lot is going to be an issue. And, why not try something new? And again, you've got the greatest outdoor show on earth. You've got the Calgary Stampeders trying to create some new synergy, some new excitement for their fans. I'm not a big music guy, a music guy, so I couldn't tell Bret Michaels from Celine Dion personally. However, if you're a Poison guy, I guess I guess he's a good dude.
So I love the idea when I first heard it, and then when I saw the video of Bret outside of his private jet talking about he's coming to Calgary. I've seen him with Poison. I've seen him on his own. He's awesome. So far, this is a 10 out of 10, okay. Jock. This is a 10 out of 10. Now, Dave, you're a football purist, but from an entertainment standpoint, you got to give the Stamps credit. They're trying to come up with something new to generate as much buzz as they possibly can.
I would agree with that, and I give full marks because if you don't try something new, what's the point? So I think this is something great to try new. And Jock, I guess, have you heard any response? What is the reaction been from the Stampeder fans? And I guess the most important thing that I already was asked, can you get tickets for that game yet?
Individual tickets don't go on sale. I think May 3rd is when it's going to happen, Dave. But yeah, on my show here in Calgary, people are excited about it. People think, what a neat way. Hopefully there's going to be 25 to 30,000 cowboy hats at McMahon Stadium. Bret Michaels, hey, he dated Pamela Lee back in the day, so I guess that he's got that going for him. And I did listen to a little bit of his music. So hey, but bottom line is, it's not a country, and I hate to say it so stereotypical because that's not the right word, but it's one of those things where every time you think of country and western here in Calgary, it's our country. It's always a country band, and why not do a little rock for Calgary Stampede? It's also it's almost anti-Stampede, so I think it's kind of great because the Stampede is so much more than the rodeo and country music.
So the other day, they had a giant kickoff press conference for this at the Red and White Club. Now, there are some details to this, and if you want to confirm. So they've committed to doing the Stampede Bowl for at least 3 years. There is a trophy that has been or will be created. And is it true that the losing team has to give $25,000 to a charity?
Yeah, that was something Wade Miller and Jay McNeil decided to throw as a little bit of a bounty. And I had Jay McNeil on my show, and I said, Jay, you can't lose to the freaking Canadian Mafia. Okay, come on here. This is the ongoing battle with Dave Dickinson and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So yeah, you can add a little rivalry to the whole situation. Stampeders did host the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in week 4, I believe, last season. Maybe we can get the better of this Winnipeg team, and I know Saskatchewan fans would love to see that as well. So I think we're sick and tired of seeing Winnipeg, in the Grey Cup every single year. So maybe the Stamps can give them a beatdown and a little money for the food bank, which is fantastic. And they got this big fancy trophy too. It's not the Grey Cup, but it's a big fancy trophy. So I'm like you guys. You know what? Well, why not try something new, and we'll see how it plays out. So.
Well, Jock Wilson, I want to change from the greatest show on earth to the greatest outdoor show on turf. As when I caught up with Dave Dickinson at the Combine last month here in Regina, he was concerned a little bit about that turf installation at McMahon Stadium. Any update on how that's going? Because I know it's an undertaking for sure.
Yeah, it's about time. That old turf was 10 years old. Players didn't like it. The Stampeders had a lot of injuries, so it's looking pretty darn nice at this point in time. So it's going to be ready for training camp, and I think obviously we also have a brand new women's professional soccer team that's going to be playing on it as well. So that is going to be interesting. But no, the turf is a very, very important addition for the Calgary Stampeders. As Dave Dickinson probably told you, this team is full-blown rebuild time. This is not a reset. This is not a retool. This is a full-blown rebuild for the Calgary Stampeders. And, hey, why not? They only won 5 games last season. They only won, 6 games the season before that. They were not a very good football club last year. Changes had to be made. And, the turf is only one element of it. Let's see what this team can do on the field because it's going to be a new-look red and white team. There's no question about that.
Has
Jock
the weather
Wilson
cooperated with that installation? Sorry, Jock. That was what David had mentioned to me as well, is that, the weather had delayed things a little bit, but it's okay now?
Yeah, no, it's looking good. We were there for the announcement for the Stampede Bowl, and it's taken shape. And I don't want to talk politics. Mark Carney had a big function there last night. You could see it in the background, looking pretty good. So all said and done, it'll be ready for training camp. There's no question about that. Hey, it's fast approaching with training camp too. So with the CFL Draft coming up at the end of this month, and then rookie camp opens May the 7th, main camp's on May 11th. So it better be ready. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so we'll touch on the draft and the Stamps in a second and the retooled roster for this year. But real quick, because you would have watched them closer than anybody else, between Mike Rose, Jake Mayer, and Tommy Stevens, who now all are part of Rider Nation, out of those 3 players, who do you think can have the biggest impact in 2025 for the Riders?
Listen, the Calgary Stampeders lost 17 players from their roster last year. And when I look at the players they lost, I really don't go, oh, that's a big loss because, they only won 5 games last year. But I think Mike Rose is still a stud on the defensive line. And that's a guy that's going to be very, very motivated, I think, for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The biggest loss here in Calgary probably on the offensive line, and Sean McEwen. Losing Sean McEwen on the offensive line, I think he's going to be a big add for the Saskatchewan Roughriders as well. I like Jake. Jake Mayer took a bad rap here in Calgary last season when he replaced Bo Levi Mitchell. Everybody thought he was going to be the next one. It just didn't work out. And do I think Jake Mayer still has game? I think he's going to get an opportunity. You guys tell me. You know Saskatchewan better than I do, but right now the Riders are banking on a 39-year-old quarterback to take them to the promised land. What are the chances that Trevor Harris plays all 18 games this year? I would say very, very slim. So I do think Rider fans are going to see Jake Mayer play a little bit this year. How much? That is to be determined. But hey, I think that's a nice add. But if you're going to ask me who's going to make the biggest impact for your team, I think Sean McEwen, number 1 on the offensive line because he's one of the best centers in the league. Mike Rose, number 2, because he is a stud on the defensive line, and he can be him and Micah Johnson, like, look out, hey, that's going to scare a lot of offenses. And then I would say Jake probably number 3.
It's funny because Jake Mayer already is the most popular player in Riderville, as the old joke goes, right? The most popular player is the backup quarterback. But aside from that, I want to take a look at this rebuild with the Calgary Stampeders because BC's loss literally was Calgary's gain. You've got 3 picks in the top 20. I know that Dave Dickinson was working extremely hard with John Huffnagel and the entire staff at the Combine. Do you see them using all 3 picks? What do you see them focusing on? Well, what's your take when it comes to the draft strategy of the Stampeders?
You look back to last year's draft for the Calgary Stampeders. Their first-round picks were very, very solid. 2 guys that made, big impacts for the team. Ben LaBrosse, who became your starting halfback, and it looks like he's going to be your starting field side corner this year for the Calgary Stampeders. That was the indication I was given. He was the 4th overall pick. Christy Nakanu, on the offensive line with a couple of injuries, he got a lot of starts in the second half of the season at the right guard position. So those were 2 first-round picks. And Dave has been very, very clear with that first overall pick. And there's talk that they could move it. I don't see that happening. That's got to be a player that can come in and be a starter this year. As you guys know, you can't win in this league without good Canadians. That has been a little bit of a question mark for the Calgary Stampeders over the last couple of years. Their Canadian talent has taken a hit. So, you've got Jalen Philpott, you re-signed him, you've got Ben LaBrosse, you've got Christy Nakanu. I think they're probably going to be looking on the defensive line, maybe the linebacker position, but, as they've told me here in Calgary, whichever route they go, they feel that they're going to get 2 really good players in the first round, first overall and BC's pick that they lost because they went over the salary cap. So I think you're probably looking at the defensive line and maybe the linebacker position as well.
Stuart Johnston announced as the new CFL commissioner. He's coming from TSN. Your thoughts on someone who's coming with intricate knowledge of the CFL from the television and the production side? What do you think about that announcement?
Yeah, I don't know Stuart personally, but everything I've heard, and on my show here in Calgary, I've got a couple of TSN guys that work with me. Craig Button, former Flames general manager, is my NHL insider. He speaks very, very highly of Stuart Johnson, not only with his media background, but his sales background, just his business background. He says that the CFL is getting a really, really good people's person and a guy that, as Craig put it, 10 years ago, TSN was in the toilet. TSN had lost the hockey rights. Everybody thought TSN was going to be doom and gloom and be at the bottom of the barrel. Well, apparently a guy like Stuart Johnson, kept the core together, kept their hockey packages together, got the rights for the regional rights, and really did a good job, basically putting that organization back on the map after losing the NHL rights. So everything I hear about Stuart Johnson, I think he's going to be a very, very good hire for the Canadian Football League. Let's be honest, the TV contract is going to be huge. If they can get a double deal like the NHL did and double down on the dollar figures, that's going to put this this league in the right direction, I think, moving forward. So, we'll see what happens. It's always a tough job, though, because you got 9 very, very strong personalities with your governors that you have to report to. But I think Stuart Johnson has some respect in that room, and because he's been dealing with it from the TSN perspective, I don't think it's going to be that tough of a transition for him.
Jock Wilson, I don't know if this is something that he's going to have to conquer or tackle in his first 100 days on the job, but one of the things that's been brought up to me around the province of Saskatchewan has been the release of those salary cap figures. And yes, there were 4 teams, including the Saskatchewan Roughriders, that went over, but as mentioned earlier, BC Lions, they went way over $300,000 over the cap. And the 2 thoughts that I'm hearing from people that I speak with is, number one, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And then the other side is that, okay, I can understand if you go a little over the cap, but there was complete disregard in BC. And there's some people that are upset about that. What do you hear and feel on that situation?
It's a great question, because you've got a situation where right before free agency kicked in this year, what did we hear? We heard, the salary cap is going up, and the general managers were all saying, really? We didn't know this when they were planning free agency. So, some general managers are sticking with the old cap. Some are saying, do we have this extra money to spend? I think from a fan's perspective, they just want, transparency. And if you're going to cheat like the BC Lions did, then you should suffer. And that is really abusing the situation. So, hey, have teams gone slightly over because of injuries? It's a fine line. But the BC Lions did it for one reason. They wanted to win a Grey Cup on their own soil. Didn't work out for them. They spent a lot of money, on Nathan Rourke. They kept Vernon Adams where they probably could have moved Vernon Adams, because obviously Nathan Rourke was going to be their guy. So I think they just have to look in the mirror and say, we did it because we thought we were going to host the Cup and we're going to pay for it. So they made the trade and they got the first round pick, or at least the second, the early pick in the second round for the Vernon Adams trade. But boy, that's a big penalty to take. But ultimately, if you're going to cheat, it's going to cost you a little bit of money. So the Calgary Stampeders are certainly quite happy with the money they're going to receive, and obviously the draft picks they're going to receive as well.
All right, Jock, we'll let you go because we know that you got to get on the radio too. But the Calgary Flames are in a dogfight for this final playoff spot, the wild card in the West, trailing the Minnesota Wild. The Wild have 91 points. The Flames have 87. Somewhere in your crystal ball, do you see the Flames catching the Wild and making the playoffs this year?
Oh, God, guys, I tell you what, deep down I want to say yes, but realistically, it's not going to happen. Like, are the Minnesota Wild really going to lose to the San Jose Sharks tonight? I don't see that happening. If that happens, then I will say, yes, there is a chance, because the Flames should have no problem with the Ducks tonight. The Ducks are not a very good team, but the San Jose Sharks are a worse team. They're one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst team in the league right now. And then, of course, everybody will look to Friday night. Friday night, if Calgary wins tonight and, say, Minnesota loses, then Friday night is going to be fun, because the Minnesota Wild are here in Calgary, and that could basically determine it, which could be fantastic. But I don't see the Minnesota Wild, losing against a couple of weak teams, because they still have Anaheim on their schedule. They still got the Sharks tonight, and realistically, if they win those two games, Calgary's in deep trouble.
All right, it's Jock Wilson from QR77 in Calgary. Jock, we always enjoy having you on the show. The Stampede Bowl, loving that idea. Pass that along to Jay McNeil. If Brett Michaels is doing autographs, maybe he can get me maybe one of his custom cowboy hats or one of his wigs signed. We really appreciate that.